My name is Sabrina Whitmore. I'm 34 years old, and I didn't realize my engagement was already dead when my phone buzzed with a message that sounded considerate. Don't wait up tonight. I'm out with Nate for a bit. Just need some air. There was nothing technically wrong with that sentence. No obvious cruelty, no blatant disrespect. It was the kind of text you could show someone and they'd shrug and say, healthy. He's communicating. But I stared at it longer than I should have, because something about it felt too polished, like a line he'd practiced in his head on the drive home. Need some air. Soft words. Safe words. Words that made it harder for me to question anything without sounding dramatic. My fiancé, Ryan Keller, and I had been together for 3 years. We'd been engaged for 8 months. Wedding date set, deposits paid, guest list in a shared spreadsheet with color-coded tabs, because that's who I am when I love someone. I build, I organize, I make things real. Ryan was the opposite in the ways that used to feel exciting. He worked in marketing, always talking, always networking, always able to make a room laugh in under 30 seconds. He used to come home and tell me stories, little impressions of coworkers, weird client requests, the kind of details that made his world feel vivid. Somewhere around 2 months ago, those details started disappearing. At first it was small. He'd answer my questions with summaries instead of stories. How was your day? Busy. What did you do after lunch? Meetings. Then the phone stuff started. Not the cliché hiding in the bathroom type. It was subtler than that. He'd angle his screen away when I walked by. He'd smile at something, then swallow it like it wasn't meant for me. He'd start typing, then stop the second I entered the room, like my presence changed the rules. And suddenly there were more late nights, more industry mixers, more last-minute dinners with clients that somehow always stretched past midnight. I told myself what every reasonable woman tells herself when she doesn't want her life to fracture. We're stressed. Wedding planning. Work. It'll pass. The morning everything snapped into place, it didn't happen during a confrontation. It didn't happen with screaming or tears or a dramatic confession. It happened with something stupid. A forgotten tablet. Thursday morning, Ryan was in a rush. Tie half straight, coffee in one hand, keys in the other, kissing me fast, like he was checking a box. Love you, he said. Love you too, I answered automatically, because the words still came out of me, even when my gut felt uneasy. The door clicked shut behind him. 10 minutes later, I walked into the kitchen and saw it on the counter, his tablet, face up, like it was waiting. Ryan never left that thing behind. He treated it like a second brain. Calendars, notes, campaign drafts, everything. The kind of device a person guards without thinking. I wasn't snooping, not at first. I picked it up to move it somewhere safe, because if it got knocked onto the tile floor, he'd be furious. The screen lit up as soon as my fingers touched it, and there it was. A message preview at the top of the screen, bright and casual and intimate in a way that made my stomach go cold before my brain fully understood why. Alyssa K. Last night was exactly what I needed. Thank you for understanding me in ways she never could. I swear the room changed temperature. For 1 second, I just stood there holding the tablet like it was a live wire. My mind tried to do this gentle, protective thing, tried to reinterpret what I was seeing into something harmless. Maybe she's a client, maybe it's a joke, maybe last night is about work. But my thumb moved anyway. My body did it before my dignity could step in. I opened the thread, and I fell into 3 months of a relationship that wasn't supposed to exist. It started light, playful conference banter, so nice meeting you. You're hilarious. Little winking compliments that made my skin crawl because I could hear Ryan's voice in them. Then it turned into emotional intimacy, so fast, it felt like watching a door close from the wrong side. Alyssa. I can't stop thinking about our talk. Ryan. Same. It's ridiculous how easy it is with you. Alyssa. You make me feel seen. Ryan. Because I actually listen. And then the lines that didn't leave room for innocence. Ryan. I think I'm falling for you. Alyssa. That scares me. Ryan. It should, because I don't want to stop. My hands started shaking, not in a dramatic movie way, in a quiet way, like my body was trying to burn off adrenaline without permission. I scrolled higher, lower, faster. Coffee meetups became dinners. Dinners became late-night drinks. There were references to hotel lobbies, to walking by the river, to the taste of her lip gloss, details that made me feel like I was reading a stranger's diary with my life scribbled into the margins. And the lies. God, the lies were everywhere. The night he told me he was out with Nate, he was with her. The work dinner that ran late? Her. The networking event he said was boring? Her. 3 months of my fiancé building an entire second emotional life while coming home to me, while wearing the watch I bought him, while letting me book tastings and choose fonts for invitations like none of it mattered. At one point, Alyssa wrote, "So what are you going to do about her?" And Ryan's reply sat there like a knife left on the counter. I need to figure out my situation. I can't rush. I just need space to think. Space. To think. The exact language he'd been using with me lately, like it was a mature, responsible request instead of what it really was, a strategy, a soft landing, a way to keep me steady while he tested another life. I set the tablet down slowly, like if I moved too fast, reality would spill. Then I did the one thing I'm grateful I did in that moment. I reached for my phone, not to call him, not to scream, not to confront. I took photos, every message, every date stamp, every good night and I miss you and she doesn't get me. I documented it like evidence because something inside me, some quiet, older instinct, knew that once I confronted him, he would try to reshape the story. He would make me feel crazy. He would make me feel invasive. He would make himself the victim of my lack of trust. So I gave myself the one thing he couldn't talk his way out of. Proof. When I finished, I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee I couldn't taste, staring at the wall like my brain had to reboot. 20 minutes passed, maybe more. Then the front door opened. Ryan was back, briefly. He'd forgotten something in his car, apparently. He walked into the kitchen like nothing in the world was wrong. He saw me at the table and paused. "You okay?" he asked, concern on his face, perfectly performed. "You look upset." I watched him, the way he leaned on the counter, the way his eyes scanned me, not lovingly, but carefully, like he was measuring whether I suspected anything. "I'm fine," I said, and my voice didn't even shake. "Just tired." He nodded like that explained everything. "Yeah," he said softly, "you've been working a lot." Then he walked over, kissed my cheek, warm, familiar, and it nearly broke me because it wasn't the kiss of a guilty man in his mind. It was the kiss of a man who believed he could do whatever he wanted and still come home to safety. He grabbed his missing item, smiled, and left again. The door clicked shut, and I sat there, staring at the spot where he'd stood, feeling something shift inside me. Not just heartbreak, not just anger, a kind of clarity that felt sharp enough to cut. I picked up my phone and called the one person who would tell me the truth without dressing it up. My older sister, Jenna. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, what's up? You sound weird." I swallowed. "Ryan's cheating." There was a pause so complete I could hear her breathing. "What?" I didn't tell her the whole story yet. I couldn't. If I said it all out loud, it would become too real too fast. "I have proof," I said. "Messages. 3 months." Jenna's voice hardened instantly, like a door slamming. "Okay, listen to me. Do not confront him until you're ready, because once you do, he's going to try to control the narrative." "I know. Do you want me to come over?" I looked around the kitchen, the place where we'd planned our seating chart, where he'd hugged me from behind while I cooked, where I'd once believed I was safe. "No," I said quietly, "not yet." Because the truth was, I didn't want comfort. Not yet. I wanted control. I wanted to end this in a way he couldn't twist into something gentle and mutual and complicated. I wanted him to feel the ground drop the way mine just had. Jenna exhaled. "Okay, then we do this smart." I stared at my phone screen, at the photos I'd taken, rows of betrayal captured in clean rectangles. "Yeah," I whispered, "smart." And as I sat there, the morning light sliding across the table like nothing had changed, I made a decision I never imagined I'd make about the man I was supposed to marry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to bargain. I wasn't going to explode and give him the advantage of calling me emotional. I was going to prepare. And when he came home that night asking for space, I was going to give him more than he ever expected. Permanent space. By noon, I'd stopped crying. Not because it didn't hurt. God, it hurt so much my chest felt bruised from the inside, but because my body did this strange thing when panic peaked, it turned everything into tasks. Grief became a checklist. I washed the mug Ryan had kissed me beside. Not because it mattered, but because I needed my hands to do something normal, while my mind tried to accept the abnormal. Then I opened my laptop. Our wedding spreadsheet was still pinned in my browser. It sat there like a joke I hadn't been told was cruel yet. Venue contacts, catering payments, florist options, seating chart drafts, the little tab Ryan insisted on labeling vibes, where he'd pasted photos of centerpieces. I stared at it for a full minute, then clicked into the vendor emails like I was stepping into someone else's life. First, the venue. I wrote a clean, polite message with the kind of tone you use when you don't want anyone to hear the shakiness in your voice. Hi, this is Sabrina Whitmore. We need to discuss rescheduling or canceling our October booking. My finger hovered over send. Then I remembered what Jenna had said. Do this smart. I didn't want to cancel yet. Not until I confronted him. Not until the story was sealed. But I needed to know what my options were, how fast I could move, what kind of refunds existed. I needed the practical truth so Ryan couldn't trap me later with, but we'll lose everything if we cancel. So I called instead. The venue manager was warm, professional, used to brides panicking over linen colors and guest counts. We can postpone without penalty if it's within a certain window, she said gently. And if you cancel this far out, you'll get most of the deposit back. The caterer is usually the bigger loss. Thank you, I managed. Just email me the policy? Of course. When I hung up, I realized something. Even the venue, this stranger, had more honesty in her voice than my fiancé did. I moved down the list. Caterer, photographer, DJ. Each call was a quiet funeral. By the time I finished, my hands were steady again. And that's when the next phase started. Passwords, shared accounts, all the invisible threads you don't notice until you have to cut them. Ryan and I were the kind of couple who believed in practicality. We shared streaming services, utilities, a few logins for wedding planning platforms. Not because we were naive, but because we trusted each other. Trust is the first thing betrayal makes you feel stupid for. I changed what I could, updated what required my email, removed his access where it made sense, not in some petty revenge way, more like locking windows after you realize someone's already been inside your house. Then I packed. Not everything, not yet. Just a bag, my passport, my laptop, a spare set of keys, a few pieces of jewelry that weren't expensive but were mine, irreplaceable in the way sentimental things always are. I didn't want to leave my own apartment. It was technically both of ours, both names on the lease, both sets of furniture mixed together like a life that was meant to last. But Jenna had said something else before hanging up. If he realizes you know, he might try to control the space. Don't let him. So I carried the bag to my car, drove it to Jenna's place, and left it in her guest room like insurance. When I came back, my phone buzzed. Ryan, a text that made my throat tighten because it was almost sweet. Long day, might be home a little late. Love you. I stared at it, thinking about Alyssa's message. Thank you for understanding me in ways she never could. Ryan had been telling two women he loved them in the same day. One of us got the reality. The other got the performance. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to play games. Because I wanted him to sit in the discomfort of silence for once. Around 5:30, I cleaned. Not because the apartment was messy, but because the act of wiping surfaces gave me the illusion of erasing him. The smell of lemon cleaner filled the kitchen, sharp and bright, like the opposite of what I felt. And I kept thinking about that word, pause. The way people say it like it's harmless. Like you can stop a relationship the way you stop a movie. But you can't pause a life. You either move forward together or you don't. At 6 o'clock, I heard his key in the lock. The door opened. Ryan stepped inside, loosening his tie, hair slightly messy, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. He paused when he saw me on the couch. Not because I looked angry, because I looked calm. Calm is always scarier than tears. Calm tells someone you've already decided something. Hey, he said carefully. He set his bag down slower than usual, like the weight of it might give him away. We need to talk. There it was. The sentence that always comes before a life changes. I turned a page in the book I'd been pretending to read. The words were meaningless. I hadn't absorbed a single line. Sure, I said. What's up? Ryan didn't sit next to me. That detail will haunt me longer than the big ones, I think. Because sitting across from someone is what you do when you're negotiating, not loving. He took the armchair opposite the couch and folded his hands like he was at a job interview. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, he began, voice gentle, almost rehearsed. About us, about the wedding, about everything. I watched his face while he spoke, searching for cracks. He looked nervous, real nervous, but underneath it I could see something else, relief, like he'd been holding this speech in his throat for weeks and was finally letting it out. I love you, he continued. I do, but I've been feeling really uncertain, like maybe we rushed into the engagement, like I need to be sure you're really the right choice. The audacity of that sentence didn't hit me all at once. It came in waves. First, disbelief. Then, heat. Then, a cold realization that this wasn't confusion. This was positioning. Ryan was trying to turn his betrayal into a philosophical dilemma. He was trying to make me into a question mark. I leaned back, crossing my legs slowly like I had all the time in the world. Okay, I said, what are you saying? He swallowed. I want to pause the engagement, not break up. Just take a step back. A pause. A soft landing. A way to explore something else without losing his safety net. How long? I asked quietly. Ryan blinked, like he expected pleading, not clarity. I don't know, he said. A few weeks, maybe a month. I just need space to think clearly without the pressure of wedding planning. Space to think. My stomach turned, not from surprise, but from how perfectly it matched what I'd read on the tablet. I tilted my head slightly. Space to figure out what you want? Yes, he said quickly, grateful I was making it sound reasonable. Exactly. I let the silence stretch. Not dramatically, just long enough for him to shift in his seat, for his fingers to tighten together. Then I said very softly, or space to figure out if you want to be with Alyssa. Ryan went completely still. Not a flinch, not a blink. Like his body froze to buy his brain time. What? He whispered. Alyssa K, I clarified, calm as a doctor reading a diagnosis. The woman you've been talking to for 3 months. The woman you were with last night when you told me you were having dinner with Nate. His face drained so fast I almost felt dizzy watching it. Sabrina, what are you... I saw your messages, I said. All of them. His mouth opened, then closed, like he was trying to find a lie that would survive the room. How? He started. You forgot your tablet, I answered, not giving him room to spin it. Thursday morning. It lit up. Your iMessages are synced. Ryan stood up abruptly and started pacing. And there it was. The shift. The pivot away from guilt and toward offense. You went through my private messages? He snapped, voice climbing. Sabrina, that's not okay. I stayed seated. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't match his energy. Because I'd read every line of his betrayal, and nothing he said now could make me smaller. You left it unlocked on the kitchen counter, I replied evenly, and the message preview was right there. He kept pacing, hands in his hair, like he was performing distress. You invaded my privacy, he insisted, louder now. You had no right. Ryan, I interrupted, my voice low and steady. We are not doing that. He stopped, startled. Let's not pretend this is about privacy, I continued. This is about you building an entire relationship with someone else while wearing my ring and planning a wedding. His jaw clenched. It's not what you think. Okay, I said, then explain it. Ryan exhaled sharply, like I was being unreasonable. Alyssa and I connected, he admitted, voice softer again. We met at that conference and we just started talking. It was easy. She listens. And lately you've been so focused on work, and I felt lonely. So you started an affair, I said, finishing it for him. His head snapped up. It wasn't physical. I stared at him. In my mind, I saw the messages. I think I'm falling for you. I don't want to stop. Last night was exactly what I needed. You don't get to minimize it, I said. An emotional affair is still an affair. You lied to me for 3 months. Ryan's eyes flashed with something. Anger, shame, panic. Hard to tell. They all look similar on someone who's caught. I was confused, he said, reaching for the word like it could save him. I didn't mean for it to happen. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. You weren't confused. You were comfortable. Ryan took a step toward me, hands out like he could physically pull me back into the story he wanted. Sabrina, please. The engagement pause wasn't about her. It was about me needing to think. I stood up then. Not in a dramatic way. Just enough to shift the power. Ryan, I said quietly, you wanted to pause the engagement so you could test the Alyssa option without fully losing me. His face twitched, and that twitch told me I was right. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Sharp, certain. Ryan flinched. I didn't. Because I'd already arranged this part. He looked at me, eyes widening. Who is that? I walked toward the door, my steps steady. Our parents, I said over my shoulder. Both sets. His voice cracked. What? Why would you... Sabrina, don't... I turned the knob and opened the door. My parents stood on one side of the hallway, confused but concerned. Ryan's parents stood beside them, equally puzzled. 4 faces, 1 doorway, a moment that felt like a courtroom before the verdict. Thanks for coming, I said, voice calm enough to scare even myself. Please come in. Ryan and I need to talk to you about something. Behind me, Ryan whispered, barely audible. Please don't do this. I looked back at him, and for the first time all day, I felt no tenderness, only clarity. You asked for space, I said softly. I'm just making sure you don't get to use it to lie. The room filled slowly. Not with sound, but with weight. My parents stepped inside first, scanning my face like they were trying to read a language they hadn't learned yet. Ryan's parents followed, polite smiles fixed in place, the kind people wear when they expect news about dates or seating charts, not detonations. Ryan stood frozen near the armchair, his hands clenched, his mouth opening and closing like he was waiting for a cue that never came. "Is everything okay?" my mother asked, eyes flicking between us. "You sounded urgent on the phone." I didn't sit, I didn't offer drinks, I didn't soften my posture, because the second I did, this could become a discussion, a debate, a version of events, and I wasn't here to negotiate. "No," I said plainly, "everything is not okay." Ryan's mother frowned. "Sabrina, what's going on?" I looked at Ryan then, just once, gave him the courtesy of seeing my face before the truth landed. "Ryan has been having an affair," I said, "for the past 3 months." The word affair hit the room like a dropped plate. Ryan's father's brows shot up. "An affair?" he repeated, sharp and incredulous. "Ryan?" "It's not Ryan started, stepping forward. "It's not like that." "Please don't interrupt," I said calmly. That calm, God, I could feel it unnerving everyone. Calm doesn't beg. Calm doesn't spiral. Calm testifies. "I found out yesterday morning," I continued, "when Ryan forgot his tablet at home. His messages are synced across devices. I saw everything." Ryan's mother brought a hand to her mouth. "Everything?" I nodded. 3 months of messages with a woman he met at a conference. Emotional intimacy, repeated meetups, lies about where he was going, who he was with. Ryan's face was flushed now. "We didn't sleep together," he insisted, desperation creeping in. "This is being blown out of proportion." My father, who had been silent until now, spoke quietly. "Son," he said, looking at Ryan with a disappointment that cut deeper than anger, "that's not the point." Ryan's mouth snapped shut. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Ryan saw it and shook his head immediately. "Please," he whispered. "Sabrina, don't." I ignored him. "I took screenshots," I said, unlocking my phone, because I knew this would turn into denial otherwise. I handed the phone to my mother first. She read silently. Her lips pressed together, her eyes moved faster with each line. Then she passed it to my father. Ryan's mother leaned over his shoulder, reading along. The room went very still. No one spoke, because no one needed to. The messages did all the talking. "You told this woman you were falling for her," Ryan's mother said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "While engaged?" Ryan swallowed hard. "Mom, I was confused. I didn't know what I felt." "You knew enough to lie," I said. "You knew enough to tell me you were with friends when you weren't. You knew enough to plan dates and hide them." Ryan's father took the phone from my dad and scrolled himself. His jaw tightened. "You told her she understood you better than your fiancé," he said, disbelief curdling into anger. "Is that true?" Ryan looked away. That was answer enough. My mother handed the phone back to me gently, like it was something fragile. "This isn't confusion," she said quietly. "This is a choice." Ryan's shoulders sagged, like the weight of witnesses had finally pressed down on him. I took a breath. "There's more," I said. "Tonight, Ryan asked to pause the engagement." That got their attention. "A pause?" my father repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, eyes never leaving Ryan, "he wanted to keep me as an option while he figured out if he wanted to be with the other woman." Ryan opened his mouth again. "That's not fair." His father stood up so abruptly the chair scraped the floor. "Enough," he snapped. The word cracked like a whip. Ryan flinched. "You don't get to argue semantics here," his father continued, voice shaking with restrained fury. "You embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed us." Ryan's mother was crying now, quiet tears slipping down her cheeks as she stared at the floor. My chest tightened, not with guilt, but with grief for the version of this family dinner that never should have happened. "I called you all here," I said, voice steady, "because I wasn't going to let this turn into a story about growing apart or needing space. The engagement is over. I've already spoken to the venue and vendors." Ryan's head snapped up. "You what?" "It's done," I said. "I'm not marrying someone who made me a backup plan." My father nodded once. "Good." Ryan's mother looked at me then, eyes red. "Sabrina, I'm so sorry." "I know," I said softly, and I meant it. Ryan's father turned to his son. "Pack your things," he said flatly. "You're coming with us tonight." Ryan stared at him. "Dad!" "No," his father cut in. "You don't stay here, not after this." Ryan looked around the room like he was waiting for someone, anyone, to rescue him. No one did. My parents stayed quiet, supportive in the way that matters, by not questioning my decision. Ryan grabbed his jacket mechanically, his movements stiff like he'd been hollowed out. At the door, his mother paused and looked back at me. "You were good to him," she said. "I wish..." I wish he'd understood that. Me too, I replied. The door closed behind them. The apartment felt cavernous without their presence. Too quiet. Too big. My parents stayed for another half hour. My mom hugged me tightly. My dad asked if I wanted to stay with them for the night. I'm okay, I said. And surprisingly, I was. After they left, I sat on the couch until the clock crept past midnight. I didn't cry. I just stared at the dark window, replaying 3 years in my head, wondering which moments were real and which ones were just scaffolding for a lie. At 3:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ryan. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. Can we talk tomorrow? I stared at the screen. Then I set the phone face down and let the silence answer for me. I woke up Friday morning to 17 missed calls. All from Ryan. There was one voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away. I stared at the notification like it was a test I didn't feel like taking. The sun was already up, spilling light across the bedroom in a way that felt offensive. Too normal for what my life had turned into overnight. Eventually, I pressed play. Ryan's voice came through the speaker raw and unsteady, like he'd been crying hard enough to forget how to breathe. Sabrina, please, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't want to lose you. Please call me back, please. I stopped it halfway through. Deleted it. Not because I was cruel, but because I recognized the pattern already. This wasn't accountability. This was panic. This was someone realizing the safety net was actually gone. I texted my manager and took the day off work. There was no way I could sit through meetings pretending my life hadn't imploded. Instead, I put on jeans, tied my hair back, and turned heartbreak into admin. First, the apartment. Ryan and I had 6 months left on the lease. Both our names were on it. In another version of my life, this would have turned into weeks of arguments, spreadsheets, resentment. But the universe, shockingly, gave me one small mercy. The landlord listened, actually listened. I explained, briefly and honestly. No drama, no details, just that the engagement was over due to infidelity and one of us needed to leave. I'm sorry, he said. That's rough. Then he surprised me. If you want to break the lease early, I can work with you, he offered. 1 month's penalty instead of 2. I thanked him more sincerely than I'd thanked anyone in days. Next, vendors. Official cancellations this time, no hypotheticals. Some deposits were refunded, some weren't. The caterer kept theirs. I didn't fight it. It felt like hush money for a future I didn't have to live anymore. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Ryan. It was Nate, Ryan's friend. The one he'd used as cover so often his name felt poisoned now. Sabrina, Nate said carefully. I didn't know. I leaned against the kitchen counter, eyes closed. I didn't know Ryan was seeing anyone else, he continued. He told me you guys were stressed and needed space sometimes. I swear, if I'd known... I believe you, I said. And I did. Because the worst betrayals don't need accomplices. They just need silence. For what it's worth, Nate added quietly, you didn't deserve this. Thanks, I replied. Take care. I hung up and felt something loosen in my chest. One less doubt, one less question. At 2:47 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I knew it would be him. Ryan stood in the hallway looking smaller somehow, eyes red, shoulders slumped, confidence stripped down to fear. Thank you for seeing me, he said immediately. I'm not seeing you, I replied evenly. I'm letting you get your things. He nodded quickly. Okay, that's fair. Can we just talk for 5 minutes? I checked my watch. You have 5. We stood in the living room, the space that had once been full of shared laughter and future plans. Ryan swallowed. I know I made a terrible mistake. Yes, I said. But what we have, it was real, he insisted. Alyssa didn't mean anything. She was just a distraction. She meant enough for you to lie to me for 3 months. I was confused, he said again, desperate now. I shook my head. Stop saying that. Confusion is accidental. What you did was deliberate. I'm choosing you now, he said, stepping closer. I want to fix this. You don't get to choose me after I caught you, I replied. That's not how accountability works. His face crumpled. That's not fair. You had 3 months to choose me, I said quietly. You didn't. You chose her, over and over again. The only reason you're here now is because you lost both of us. That's not true, he whispered. It is, I said, and your 5 minutes are up. Ryan stood there a moment longer, searching my face like he might find the woman who used to soften everything for him. She wasn't there anymore. Get your bags, I said. He tried to argue, tried to stretch the time. I started packing his things instead. Shirts folded, shoes paired, toiletries dropped into a bag without ceremony. Eventually, he joined in. We packed in silence. When 3 bags sat by the door, Ryan looked at me one last time. I really do love you, he said. I met his gaze. If this is what your love looks like, I answered, I don't want it. He left. That evening, I changed the locks. I blocked his number, his email, his social media. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. Because leaving a door cracked for someone who betrayed you doesn't make you kind. It makes you available. 3 weeks after everything imploded, my phone buzzed with a name I didn't expect to ever see. Alyssa K. She'd found me on LinkedIn. The message was long, apologetic, carefully worded. I'm so sorry. I truly didn't know Ryan was engaged. He told me he was single and working through the end of a past relationship. I would never have pursued anything if I'd known. I didn't mean to hurt you. I read it twice. Not because I believed it, but because I wanted to understand the shape of the lie. I typed one sentence back. He wore an engagement ring alternative watch you bought together. You met only in secret. He couldn't post photos of you anywhere. You never wondered why. I stared at the screen after sending it. She never replied. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. The lease ended up breaking with only a 1-month penalty, just like the landlord promised. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work. No shared memories in the walls. No echoes of a man I used to love brushing past me in the hallway. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Ryan tried to reach out again a few times. New numbers. One handwritten letter he sent to Jenna's place that I threw away without opening. One attempt to show up at my office that my assistant turned away without hesitation. Jenna told me I should block everything completely. You're not being cruel, she said. You're closing the door. She was right. So I did. A month later, I ran into Ryan's mother at a coffee shop near my new place. She froze when she saw me, embarrassed, uncertain, but then she walked over anyway. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, she said softly. You were always good to our family. He's struggling. But that's his responsibility. I know, I said, and I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for karma or apologies or closure conversations in dimly lit cafes. I was already past it. 3 months have passed now. I've started dating again. Not seriously, not recklessly, just carefully, with clearer boundaries, sharper instincts. I don't ignore red flags anymore. I don't explain them away. I don't mistake charm for character. But I'm not cynical. What Ryan did wasn't a warning against love. It was a warning against people who want options instead of accountability. I learned something important through all of this. When someone asks for space to figure things out, they usually already have. They just want to soften the consequences. I learned that evidence matters. Screenshots matter. Truth needs witnesses. And most importantly, I learned that being alone is infinitely better than being someone's backup plan. Ryan wanted to put me on pause while he explored another life. I gave him exactly what he asked for. Permanent space. My name is Sabrina Whitmore. I'm 34 years old. I didn't get the wedding I planned, but I also didn't get the marriage that would have destroyed me slowly. And that's not a loss. That's a rescue.